give a warm welcome to Chanda sir. So we are honored that we have got some great leaders who are going to be speaking to us about AI. And these are people who are industry experts. So thank you so much, Vivek sir, for being there. And these industry experts, I'm saying specifically because they have not only delved into AI, but they have adapted and incorporated AI in their fields. And so let me, without further ado, give you a brief introduction about both of them. To begin with, let's start with Vivek sir here. So Vivek has been an edtech entrepreneur for over 22 years and is the founder of Liquid, which is a specialized digital learning company, and it provides a range of personalized AI-enabled and other learning solutions with specific focus on English language learning to global organizations. His prior to this, he had founded eGurukul, which was India's leading website for K-12 curriculum support and test prep. Vivek sir has done his MBA from IIM Calcutta of India and has worked with GE Capital. He has a keen interest in AI technology and education. You'll get to see it from his profile. It talks so accordingly. Vivek sir is a prominent speaker in national and international forums. His international speaking engagements include he's been at ASTD conference at Atlanta in USA, in BPI conference from British University, in London, UK, Media and Publishing Conference in Singapore, and Global Education Forum, Dubai. Vivek sir, I must say we are honored with your presence today. I think my audience is going to get great insight thanks to you.
Thank you for having me, Sakshi. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much sir, for taking out the time. And without a further ado, there is a face that would be quite known to maybe some of my audience, who's a common audience here. But yet, for those who do not know this man by his face, I'll say this is Chandra Madan for you. And let me speak a few words about his detailed experience. I'll try and summarize it. He's a visionary entrepreneur with 35 plus years of experience in edutech field. And as the founder and CEO of eAge Edu Solutions, he's a passionate personnel about his technological solutions for education, and he's currently exploring cutting-edge AI advancements. His pioneering work has transformed the language learning at eAge Solutions, benefiting individuals and communities, and his extensive experience in general management, finance, business, and operations has contributed to the success and esteemed organizations like HP and NIIT. So he does not need any introduction beyond this, but both of them in edutech field are definitely for you the pioneers of applying AI in this division. And that's the reason why I chose them on this platform to educate us about what are the possibilities with AI. What can AI do for us in the in various fields to begin with? So Vivek sir, if I may start with you. And then for the interest of my audience, could you give us a brief overview about generative AI and its significance in today's world, please? Sir, you're on mute.
So thank you, Sakshi. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. The so generative AI essentially means that you can use AI tools to generate a bunch of things. It could be text, it could be video, it could be images, whatever it is, right? So the whole field has exploded with the launch of Chat GPT, Chat GPT 3 in November of last year. What it really so see ultimately AI fundamentally is about automation. I mean, it just does things faster than humans can do, right? And it does it, and the one other difference is that it can find patterns by itself, right? So traditionally you would use if then loops or reasoning or try and analyze patterns, the data scientists and all that. Now what you do is using AI, you do algorithms and you do the neural networks, and it figures out the patterns amongst yourself within the data by itself, right? So it's a bit of a black box. The explainability is low. I mean, how it found the patterns, but the answers are very, very accurate. So I think that's the two things: automation and sort of the finding patterns, right? Uh, it is completely transformational in a sense that, if you look at the evolution of technology over the last few decades, it's been going better and better, right? I mean, knowledge workers, computer, software, all of that is getting better. Now, this is marks a huge leap, I think, in that process, where a lot of work, we used to think that knowledge workers could do would be outside, they would be untouchable by technology, songs, articles, paintings, right? All of that stuff is now possible using AI. And I think that's what generative AI is about. In terms of its significance, it is a massive improvement or massive step forward in the whole technology process. Significance, I think, see, it'll add trillions of dollars of economic value going forward, because people will become more productive. There'll be more economic value through use of these tools. But also, what will happen, at least, and the estimates vary, but 30 to 50% of all jobs that exist today are likely to get impacted in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Now, that is massive. Now, what will happen is that, anybody, so I'm of the view today that AI will not replace humans, at least not the way it exists today. I don't know what will happen in the future, but people who do not use generative AI tools will get replaced by people who use these tools. So the middle, the average will sort of, so average musicians, average artists, average writers will get hollowed out. And that AI can do. So you have to really up your game. So you have to become more creative, more productive, whatever, to really become. If you don't, then you will fall below your current earning level. So it's going to have far so every technology has an impact, right? When cars were launched, everybody said, oh, all the horse rider, all the horse carriage drivers are going to go out of jobs. And then computers were launched, and all it always happens. And this is a step in that direction, but a massive step, in some sense a discontinuous step. So I'll stop there. We can do more of it in the subsequent uh,
Yes, sir. I know it's an exciting topic for you, and we are hungry for more. So, yes, we'll cover more angles and aspects of the conversation. Chandra, sir, your kind words, a few words on it. How do you see it? Sir, you're on mute as well.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Welcome, Vivek, and thanks everybody for joining. So I think the Guru himself has covered a lot of it, so I don't think I can add much. But the only thing I would say is I think Vivek talked about a lot of jobs being impacted, right? One thing is for sure, I don't know how many jobs will go away with AI or will be better with AI. I don't know. But one thing is for sure, if you're not using generative AI or not using AI, you are sure to lose your job. Okay, very, very important. So I think as Vivek said, generative AI can be used for a lot of applications. I think a lot of us use it for content. Um, whether it is simple content, whether it's simple JD for a HR person or finance guys are using it for contracts. It can generate contracts in few seconds, right? It can generate uh, HR offer letters in few seconds. It can make a JD in few seconds. At the same time, I think it's interesting to see, and we're still learning how we can use, generative AI for designs, music. By the way, people are using for for share trading. By the way, people are writing algorithm on for share trading on that. So I think again, Vivek has covered very nicely. But the only thing I would, as I said, I would add is, make sure. I don't know how many jobs are going to go away, but if you don't know AI, don't use generative AI, uh, you should be really worried about it.
Absolutely. It is scary enough for some part of the world, but yes, the others are coming to terms with it that they have to up their skill, as sir and you have mentioned. Definitely. Uh, I'm going to talk about a specific implementation of AI today. Specifically, I'm covering that ground because, see, my audience knows that AI, generative AI, is being applied in multiple fields today. Both our speakers have already spoken to you a little on it. But let's talk about education and learning field in specific. These guys are the pioneers sitting today. So, with your experience, sir, and Vivek sir, this one goes to you. How is AI currently being utilized specifically in the field of education and learning? And what are some of the most innovative and impactful implications that you have come across in this field?
I think there is. I'd say it's very early days still for AI to be used in education and learning. Traditionally, education and learning has been a laggard in adoption of any technology, right? And this is the biggest, and the reason I think is a bit of economics also, because in corporate, if you automate a contact center in using AI, you get hundreds of millions of dollars of opportunity. Education is less money, effectively, though it's a large sector, but I think typically, but but there are several uh, situations in which learning is. See, there is a one type of learning is on the job, right? I mean, in the sense that support on the job. So it's informal learning. AI can prompt you if you're, let's say if you're a call center agent, you're typing and you need help. You can, the AI can prompt you. So you're getting better, but that's not formal learning. It's kind of informal learning. But if you look at more of our education, the schools and colleges and language learning, which is both Chandar and I really focus on. There are, it's very, very numerous applications. There is, for example, one easier one is voice recognition, right? I mean, you can all of English is this massive language that everybody wants to learn, right? And for a variety of reasons, and in India, where people uh, have sort of know some grammar, know some vocabulary. Spoken English is the big thing traditionally, but it's very difficult to give people spoken English feedback, right? I mean, how does one teacher in class of 20, 30 people engage with learners, with all the learners, and give them individual feedback? Now, AI does that very, very well. The voice recognition software that are available, and they've all now coming of age, and especially in the last few months, coming really of age, and they can provide uh, feedback, individual feedback, and practice opportunities in a non-threatening environment, which is a great thing, I think, for learning English. Again, if you look at writing skills, right? I mean, so ChatGPT can do this, but there are other systems that can give you feedback on your writing, right? Writing essays, what you did. So there is essays. There are two parts, right? There is the GSP, the grammar, spelling, and pronunciation, which is easier to sort of give feedback. Lots of engines that do that, but they also, now if you train them properly and invest, then you can give feedback on the semantics, on the prompt relevance, and stuff like that. So that is another very powerful use case, and especially if you look at people who are preparing for exams, or let's say standard TOEFL and IELTS. This is again, teachers are not going to be are always going to have a limitation of providing how many essays can they evaluate and give to the student. This is where students can do a lot of essays in there, right? So there are lots of there is another use case we have worked out, which is using vocabulary. So it's applicable to any memory based learning. So we know from our experience and learning theories that there's this concept of spaced repetition, that uh, you practice in a spaced over a time in a spaced way. So you learn something today, you forget it after a period of time, and you just revise it just before you're about to forget, and you do that 2 3 times. You sort of, it gets committed to your long-term memory. Now that's been done by lots of learning providers over the last 20, 30 years. I think the last time I heard of this, first time I heard of spaced repetition was 20 years ago, right? So people have been using it. But today you can do that using AI, which is personalized. So every word, you have a different sort of forgetting curve. Every learner has a forgetting curve, and you personalize it. And that's what makes it very, very powerful. So these are some of the use cases, and this learning, this sort of this spaced repetition learning can be applied to actually any memory-based learning situation. It will need a lot of work. It'll need to adapt that context and all that, but it can be done. So those are some of the 2 3 things. I mean, there are more, but let's. But I think I'll stop here.
Oh, definitely. I agree with you, sir. There are so many more applications, but the ones that you've suggested are only exciting enough already for the audience who's trying to develop their language skills using AI. But Chandra, sir, I would like to maybe check with you also. What do you envision? How is AI going to transform in the future of education and learning? What are some of the emerging trends or advancements in AI for education that you particularly are fascinated with?
Yeah, so I think Vivek covered a lot of it. See, quite frankly, uh, the fundamental difference in uh, human-based teaching or learning versus AI, um, as Vivek was rightly saying, right? You got a class of 30 students, and in a face-to-face class, the teacher can only spend so much time. But if you uh, take a simple example, if you're practicing interview skills, for example, so there are for the set of questions that come through, right? So it can personalize the responses. So take an example. You say, "Tell me about yourself," and uh, and that's the question that gets asked, is an icebreaker, and most of the time decides your fate in the interview, quite frankly. Okay, I run a lot of interviews, and usually within 5 seconds, if I ask the question and that someone has not responded appropriately, I would probably decide if the person is worth hiring or not, honestly. Okay, and so look at that question. If you say uh, I'm an IT engineer going for a job in Liquid, how for a developer, how would I answer that question? Okay, personalize the response to you in such a way that if Vivek is an interviewer, he'll like it, right? Oh, sir, I've heard a lot about Liquid. I'm very excited to work for Liquid. By the way, my name is Chandar, etc., etc., etc. So I think can personalize the learning, and it's pretty exciting. Um, the So that's one. Second, it can be very adaptive, right? So if you are answering questions, let's say staying with the example of interview skills, right? Um, and it remembers, right? It is a history. It has a history. What did you ask earlier? So it puts everything in a context, right? Um, so it won't say, you know, state your name within bracket name, from where you come from, place, da da da. It tells you exactly uh, in a personalized manner, I think, what you need to say. Number two is adaptive. Um, uh, if you take an example of IELTS for IELTS, and I think uh, I have not found um, any other tool, any other app that can do this job better, honestly. Um, and we have run some lesson plans, some prompts on for IELTS. I think it has really helped us. So for a student or a learner who's going abroad, knows English well, does not have to go to a tutoring company. I know I'm probably killing my own business by saying so, but doesn't have to go to a tutoring company to do it, right? But quite frankly, uh, that those answers can be given by AI or generative AI tool as an idea. Where I think, and we talked about writing skills as well, right? So in writing skills, what it can do well is it can give you a lot of content. But if you want to write, coherent, cohesive, concise paragraph on any topic, that's where the human comes in. So I think the nice way it can combine the uh, the knowledge that's given by the generative AI plus a human element when supplemented or complemented by a teacher, I think is quite fascinating. Um, and a lot of trends are happening, as I said. I think so. Going back to my example of interview skills, uh, it's adaptive in the sense that you ask the question, tell me about yourself, then you go to a tricky question, and you actually practice with it, right? It will tell you, and the way it's going to assess. So you can say, once you give the answer, uh, it can actually assess, what have you said and how have you said it. So grading and feedback is also real time. And last but not the least, some smart people have also uh, uh, included. So it's mostly chat based or text based, where some people have started to include voice as well. So it can actually tell you. So for example, if you say, how do I pronounce pneumonia? Okay, or is it onion or is it onion? It can tell you the correct pronunciation when you're practicing English at any point of time of the day. So I think these are some great developments. And again, I can go on. I'm very excited about this topic, but I think these are some of the developments which are quite fascinating. Um, I think the important thing is the caution I would probably add here is whatever you're getting from. So if you are, let's say, uh, if you're a user who does not know about the topic or does not know the English language, and you're trying to respond to somebody for a question, it can be dangerous because sometimes you may write something that's thrown out by AI or Chat GPT, and then you realize the audience who's getting it may not know what you're trying to say. So use the output out of AI, but use your own intelligence to make sure that what you're communicating with anybody is the right thing. So, for example, I got a lot of emails written by a chatbot. I know it's written by a chatbot. Okay, but if the person would have applied their mindset or their mind to whatever was written by AI, I think they could tweak and they can modify the same and then communicate to the right audience. So very fascinating in education and learning. But I think the only caution I would probably add is make sure use law of the learning, but validate that and use your own judgment in how you use it.
Sure, sir. Of course, of course. Keeping that in mind, definitely you, towards the end of your response, you have cautioned us about the usage of AI. So on that note, Vivek sir, I'd like to hear your perspective. There are quite a few benefits of applying AI in the education and learning field that both of you are trying to cover here. Are there any potential challenges that you foresee in implementing AI technologies in this world, in this field? Sir, you're on mute.
No, there are lots and lots of challenges. Okay, there are any number, and let me enumerate. See, first, let's take a tool like Chat GPT. Okay, generating text. Now, the way this whole sort of these is based on, you might have heard this term, large language models, right? Which are, so basically the way they work is that they predict the probability of what's the next word going to be, and that's how it keeps sort of generating content, pages and whatever it wants to do. However, it is using a lot of approximation. It's analyzed trillions of words, right? But the fact is the combinations are almost unlimited. So just to you see, what happens is, if you take let's say letter by letter, right, probability, you will get a load of junk. It doesn't work. If you take words by word, it improves. Okay, and if you take combination of words, 2 words at a time, then it really improves. So right now it uses 2 words, 3 words, they call grams, right? N-grams, this thing. So the total combination possible, if you take a 3-word thing, it's 60 trillion words, 60 trillion combinations. The total number of words written ever, every book ever written, all words available, is probably a few hundred billion, a couple of 100 billion words, I think. So it's doing a lot of approximation, right? Which is why you might have heard this term hallucination. Right? I mean, it sometimes invents things and it sort of doesn't give you the right, because it doesn't have all the data so for example, they use this there's this phrase we used to use before chat gpt, as an illustration to say how difficult it is for computer to understand simple things that are so easy for us human beings. So fruit flies like banana. Okay. Now fruit flies like banana, or fruit flies like banana. Second interpretation is complete nonsense. So once Chat GPT, I tried it with Chat GPT. So I asked, what does this mean? So it gave me the right answer. But I asked it that, you can also say that fruit is flying like a banana. He said, yeah, that's also possible. And it doesn't realize that so it's not telling you that it's complete nonsense, right? It's saying, yeah, it's possible. I mean, technically it's possible. So uh, there is a lot of limitation. If you start, content generation is one of the big things, but I think Chandar also mentioned that, it tends to become very repetitive and standardized beyond, after very quickly, actually. So human creativity is very important. In AI in general, I was just reading a post somebody made on Facebook, that they have this AI based in US somewhere. Uh, they have an AI based sanitizer. So you put hand under the sanitizer, it gives you soap. Now it's an AI based because you have to put a hand. I mean, if you put a paper or you put a plate, then it doesn't give you so that's why it's AI enabled. So it's interesting. The group of these, I think, professors or students, I'm not sure, in a university, and this. So first, a few American people put their hands and it gave, and then an Indian put their hand under this thing, and it didn't give out any soap, right? Because our hands tend to be darker, right? So it hadn't been trained on those type of skin colors. So now that is, so it's called, see, this is algorithmic errors. Okay, so it goes by the data that is being trained on. We have, our world, our social world is full of biases against women, minority, there are hundreds and hundreds of things, and all those biases can creep in, and they are creeping in, right? So for example, I saw another where they generated 100 images of a doctor, and almost, I think, 90% were males, right? And almost no blacks, or everybody was white, something like. So all those algorithmic biases tend to creep in. From a learning perspective, right? I think, so I believe the teacher is never going to go away, at least not in the way I can see this thing over the next few decades, right? uh, so, for example, see, this tends to the way AI works. Like Chandar also mentioned, that it recognizes what your weak areas are and you practice. So it's sort of a deficit-based approach, right? I mean, it analyzes the deficits and then it tells you what you're doing wrong. But a teacher, and all of us have had this experience. A teacher tends to encourage your strengths, right? If they know a student is from a certain background, they'll say, you should do it like this, and so teachers naturally react to students' strength. Now that part AI cannot do, right? And so I think the teacher is always going to be there. It will make job of teacher very, like, the essay that example I was giving, and Chandra also alluded to it. If the essay gets evaluated and gets emailed to a teacher who then looks at it before giving thing to the student, I think that's a great process, because it's making the life of the teacher very easy, without and while eliminating the biases that come in from the from pure AI. So I think in terms of potential, AI has, you can model student strengths in terms of their likes, dislikes, their
There.
cultural background, their cultural backgrounds. But that's right now not done. And I don't see how right now there is no visibility to that. Right, so it's work in progress. Right now there is no possibility, so we have to work with the teachers and aid the teachers in their role. There are, of course, lots of ethical and concerns about privacy, about being, how should I say, not being sensitive to the cultural. So, for example, let's say three of us go to class, and I've had a bad day. I've sort of, let's say, had an accident on my way to the class, and I failed my exam. Right now, teacher will know that something has happened, right? But the system doesn't. It'll give us all the same feedback. It'll give us the same exercises to do, while the problem may be very different. I think so. So the teacher and so we need to manage those things. So it's largely a productivity tool, an automation tool, a sort of support tool, but by no means uh, answer to every problem that we face today.
Definitely, sir. I much agree with you that yes, it cannot solutionize anything and everything for you. But sir, so how would you state that for those in the audience today? I know of many people who are trying to implement AI in their own versions of it in the educational field. What are some specific any guidelines, frameworks that they should be following in order to ensure a more responsible AI implementation?
Yeah, so I think there's several, depending on what part of value chain you're on. So let's say if you're a content creator, I mean, if you create a lot of content like we do, okay. So your content teams, the instructional designers, the subject matter experts, the visual designers, all of the coders can leverage these tools to become more productive. Right. My sense is that up to 30, 40, they're not going to go away, right? So you're not looking at replacing people, but these people can really leverage these new generative AI tools to become far more productive. And that's a very obvious, that's a very powerful use case. And I think more and more of that will continue to happen. The second aspect is let's say when you do the analytics piece, right? When you do use AI for predicting patterns within the data. Today, a lot of actually analytics is passed off as AI today, where people, so I'm doing AI, and then they start doing if then logic. I mean, that's not AI. That's if then. That's a traditional way of doing. So instead of using if then and if this happens then this happens, use AI to create to figure out patterns and to predict. So, for example, we have an algorithm we created which predicts uh, which learners are likely to drop out, or what's the probability of a learner coming to our platform in the next week, 2 weeks. So we know which other learner like to drop out, then you can send them notifications and all that. There are actually algorithms that are working that predict possibility of dropouts from university systems, for example. It's a 4-year system, so it's a long term, and they pick out signals which learner. So that's so data basically. Even learning paths, right? I mean, Chanda did mention adaptive as well as personalized. So purely from adaptive perspective, which is the individual learning path, if you like that example I gave about the vocabulary building, right? Now that sort of you create your own learning path. You say, okay, I want to learn 1,000 words in 3 months, and then it creates a path for you, and then it keeps updating it, because depending on how you're doing, you keep updating the algorithm, right? So that's part maths. You use some linear programming and all, but the variables are being generated using AI, because it can do more calculations than is generated. So I think the data part of it is automating that can, and there are a lot of tools today also that help you do that. And the third aspect, which is really the sort of the holy grail, I think, is to model learning, right? I mean, how do I learn best? How do you learn best? How does Chandra learn best, right? And actually, try and, like I said, that same vocabulary example. I'm very proud of that example. The space repetition, which is an established learning model, right? We can improve that by implementing AI. So similarly, there are a lot of learning theories that you can apply, because you can get data now and you can update it. Otherwise, it's difficult. And there are lots of examples. Actually, now last 10-15 years, a lot of developments have taken place in brain. Brain research has, so coming together of the neuro sort of thing, the learning theories and this technology. I mean, I think that's a big opportunity there. That's harder one. I mean, it's not a. But if somebody were to start out a company today, those entrepreneurs, I think that's a, and you have the sort of interest. I mean, something worth exploring for sure.
Definitely, I think the tips and the guidance that you have given is of a lot of value to some of them in the audience today. Uh, so, I would like to move to another segment. How does AI, according to you, really contribute to the natural language processing and understanding the human language better? What would you say on that?
So, I mean, I think, NLP, the natural language processing that you
Yes.
mentioned, is a key part of AI, right? I mean, its ability to understand and respond in natural language. I mean, the whole uh, the whole productivity gain is because of that. I mean, for example, Chat GPT, like I mentioned, the whole content creation process is now because it understands language that you and I speak, right? And nobody needs to sit and code. There is, for example, I was seeing this the Adobe software that the whole world uses to create images and annotate and edit images. Now, instead of sort of, let's say, if you want to say draw C behind me, right? Earlier, you'd have to go and whatever mirror it, and there's all whatever technology, whatever techniques. But today, you can just, it has an in its beta version, which it will come alive. You can just type that, please create a C, mark the area, and create the C, right? So not so the creativity is moving from drawing a C or coloring it to actually writing it in a simple language. Similarly, when you see into a lot of these now it's getting integrated into MS Office, into Google, so you can actually start asking questions in English, or you can say, okay, fill up, I want a list of these things in an Excel, and it'll fill it up, or so a lot of, so natural language is the holy grail, in a sense that that's what separates the machines and human beings, right? I mean, because so far to interface with machines, you needed, it was hard, right? I mean, even with touch and all, it was hard. That you couldn't understand what you were doing. And secondly, on that is the whole languages, the translation, right? So for example, if you're speaking in English and I don't understand English, uh, I think we're really looking at a future not so distant, where I'll be able to hear in the language seamlessly in the language that I want, right? So it'll just improve communication a lot. So NLP is a massive. I mean, it is probably one of the biggest things in AI. It's that's what, I mean, a large part of AI is about NLP. That's how I would put it.
Definitely, definitely, I agree with you. So that's why its responses are so natural that a reader gets hooked onto it and tends to use it even more. But on that note, Chandra sir, if I may check with you on this one, uh, how does AI actually handle the context and generate the coherent responses in conversations and dialogue-based interactions?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I didn't want to add to some of the comments Vivek made earlier on the challenges in implementation, right? So Vivek talked about biases, right? So this famous example that he gave about, cultural bias, right? The sanitizer box was only expecting a white hand, not a colorful hand, right? So I think when we're implementing a lot of the application, right? It has to. It's very important that that data bias is kind of removed, or the cultural bias is removed, and it's operating on a lot of data that and it's reading patterns, right? So but the knowledge and the context is limited to the data itself, right? So for example, some of the answers we get from AI or the chat GPT, sorry, um, you ask him or you ask, sorry, chat GPT, information on a latest trend or a latest change or an individual, will tell you that the information is updated till September 21. I don't know, maybe some recent changes may have happened recently, so I may be out of touch on that, but that's what you get most of the time. So I think the data bias, um, the and the second, the lack of transparency, right? It's a black box. It's generating it's using a lot of data and then generating information out of the box, which is not known to anybody, right? I mean, I'm sure there are a bunch of techies who developed all this, and the OpenAI team is doing a lot of work. But how does it actually work? Not many people know about this, um, and of course there's a high dependence on data uh, that's available to us. So I think these are some of the challenges. Sorry, what was the other question? I missed it.
Yes, sir. So if you can also throw some light on how does it really give us contextual based responses and generate more coherent responses like conversations and dialogue based
Yeah, yeah.
interactions?
So I'm not the guru on that, but let me just try. So I think it's first of all, uh, it is processing lot of data. So when you ask a question, right? Uh, so specifically to the contextual information, right? So the other day I was creating a contract for uh, a consultant we wanted to hire, right? Or let me take another example. Uh, I was trying to hire a business development manager for our company, eAge. And I said, give me a job description for uh, a business development manager. Okay, so it threw out a sales job description, very neat, very nice, in a few seconds. So then I said, uh, give me a job description for an growing ed tech company. And this created, so I think it understands the context you are using. It uses a lot of data, the underlying data that it has in uh, you know uh, in store, and then tries to create a response that's relevant in the context, as an idea. And so I think it's a super duper, in my humble opinion, tool that a lot of people can use and they can learn in their context. Take another example. Uh, you know, so if I were to uh, ask a question, uh, so let's say if I'm a software developer and I'm going for an interview, and I'm saying, can you tell me what the interviewer is going to ask me if I'm going for a developer job in that context? Okay, so it won't tell me about yourself, blah blah blah. It'll tell you, okay, so it'll ask you, how do you escalate a bug to your project manager? How would you explain the delay in a project, and how do you tell your boss, apologize for delay in the project, but commit to him or her that then you're going to deliver on time as an idea. So I think a lot of information with context uh, basis the trillions of gigabytes or whatever you call it, terabytes of data that it provides. And I haven't seen any of the tool that gives you information in that context. I mean, you look at any app, right? It won't give you that level of information and data. And that's why I think if you look at, I think Bing, Microsoft particularly has started to use, uh, AI very, very aggressively in their tools as well. So, Vivek, you want to add anything? Yeah.
See, Shakshi, the whole NLP thing, the way fundamentally, I'm not a mathematician, but I'll I'll give it just fundamentally there are two things, right? Like Chandra, a lot of data, so they use, for example, let's say you want to model um, attendance in a classroom. Okay, so you over 2 months you have a date, and you have on one axis you have number of people, and you say okay, this that, you'll get a graph something like this, right? Then you put a then if you want to create a model, then you say okay, what is a straight, we have this thing, straight fit, so you fit a line that, or you build a model that approximates all that data and can predict future data. That's what it is about. So it's just that it uses a whole lot of, so for example, chat gpt used 175 billion data points, right? And what data, and see what they do is, so it's basically so one of the big things they use is what they call embeddings, which is which word appears next to the other, right? And they create massive clusters, and then they build algorithm around it, so they predict the likelihood of a word, if a word appears, what is the likelihood of another word appearing, and that's fundamentally, so that's a algorithm, that is the key, right? I was reading the other day that Google's company DeepMind is saying that they're coming up with a better algorithm than GPT. So we'll see, right? But it's moving fast. So Chat GPT had 175 billion data points. They call them something, and Chat GPT 4 had 500 trillion. Okay, 500. I mean that's 50 times in a few months. So it's massive, and that's how they're able to just mathematically predict what comes next. So that was a little bit of a color on some of the details of how these large language models work.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for your insight on that. Definitely, points from you and Chandra sir sound very, very valid in terms of how it works, how it understands the language, and then generates or makes sense out of that data. Uh, Vivek sir, in specific, again, coming back to people using AI for the sake of language development or improving their communication, I would like to understand from you how can generative AI be effectively utilized to simulate real life communication scenarios for skill development?
So I think, see, like I said, if you look at it from a developer perspective, a company that develops and this thing, right? So what you would typically do is the first is, and that part, the curriculum. What do you teach? What is the requirement of a learner, right? Now that chat gpt cannot tell you, so that is part that you need. So see, one of the, okay, let me step back a bit. Important thing about chat gpt, one of the big limitation when we're saying that it's very generic. So if for you to succeed in this, you need to really go deep into a context, right? I mean, so today, if I'm saying I'm only giving you feedback on your grammar as a company, that is no value, because Chat GPT does that free. I mean, as a learner, I can go to Chat GPT, I can ask, I can say, can you give me my mistakes in grammar on that day? It'll give you, right? I mean, there is no problem. So that is not value enough. What as developers we have to do is be okay, we want to learn grammar for an exam, for a bank PO exam, or for IELTS, or for whatever. So put a context, and then go specific. Then you do a deep diagnostic, right? So one of the things AI does very well is a sort of a what you call a diagnostic or a formative assessment, right? Because formative assessment is similar approach. You collect data and you predict a path forward, right? And that's how. So it does that very nicely, but you have to give it a context. So I think as as entrepreneurs and as educationists, we need to build. We need to go deep into context with with the with you while using these tools, right? And that's a it's not an insignificant thing. There's this whole area you might have heard last 6 months came up, prompt engineering, right? I mean, so there are books on prompt engineering, buy software, but that is very transitory. I think it just go down the way, when we used to have those classes, how to when Google was launched or when Yahoo was launched, how to search intelligently on the internet. So people used to give gyan on how to search, right? So prompt engineering, I think, is superficial. But you need to go deeper than that, right? And it will mean that teams. So like I said, and the skill sets will have to be looked at. The writers, for example, will need to acquire more of visualizing ability apart from the curriculum and all that. The other thing is that the visualizers, the media people, will have to acquire more written skills, because they'll have to interface in natural language, as mentioning Adobe and whatever it is, right? And to really leverage all this technology, you need to go deep into how learners learn, right? Because technology allows you to today automate and do dollar analysis and all that. It would really be a waste if you just created content the way we've been doing in the past, right? So I think so from pure content creation, and then from a learning perspective. See, now what's happening is content per se for a long time has been becoming a commodity. Okay, so publishing models have been feeling the heat for several years. Now even digital creators are starting to feel the heat, because content isn't as valuable as it used to be, because it can be created, there's a lot of it available, and it can be created very quickly. So what is the value? Does the content business go away? It doesn't. What happens is content transforms itself from just a sort of a one piece of video to what I call a living content. So you keep track of who used it, when they used it, did they like it, did they learn from it. So you have thousands of, just like Facebook creates tens of thousands of data points for each learner. You need to do a similar thing for a piece of content and match it to the learner. So living or dynamic content, I think that's going to be the key, right? So that's putting a context, that's saying what learners like, what they didn't like, and then building that into a full learning program. So I think we have to think about a lot more. It's ironical to say, but learning, right? I mean, I think we've been thinking too much as industry of creating video or creating questions. We have to think about learning. And today technology allows you to do that, and especially generative technology, because you can do the basic work of creation of content very fast and very quickly and very nicely. So we have to all move up one notch from what we are providing. Otherwise, we risk running becoming obsolete ourselves.
Absolutely, sir. So we need to keep up with the generative AI and keep regenerating ourselves. That's what you meant, right?
Absolutely. Well said.
So
Yes, yes, absolutely.
on that note, sir, the other day I was going through an article that you had posted about that. I'd like to know your view on it, and this will be my last one before I let the audience come up with their questions. After Microsoft rolled out its Gen AI capabilities to its Office 360 and other products, it's now time for Google to fight back. What would you say about it? Would Google put up to the fight?
See, today Google and Microsoft are the big guys in this game, and while Microsoft stole a march by launching GPT, but Google is not going to be behind for too long, and they are integrating their. I mean, they've integrated Bard into search. They have actually integrated generative AI into as a prototype in their Excel sheets and all of that, right? So they're not behind at all. In fact, what I would say, a slightly different point to what you asked, Rakshi, that one of the challenges, if we look at from a business side, and especially any entrepreneur, see what happened is when any new technology comes. Okay, if you look at 50 years ago when software industry started or hardware industry started, then internet, then mobile phone. Typically, there are thousands of small players that sort of get into the act, and over time, one large player emerges, right? I think this is the first time when we've got this generative AI technology approach, which is controlled by two companies, right? I mean, Google and Microsoft, right? So experimentation is not going to be that easy because while you can play around with chat gpt, but if you start using paid versions and you start linking apis, it gets expensive very, very quickly. Okay, and you need tons of hardware to do that and all of that. So I think from a business model industry perspective, I see that as severely hampering the growth of use of AI, especially in a country like ours, where pricing is always going to be a challenge. Productivity definitions are a lot flatter than in a Western country. So that's going to be a big challenge, and I think as an industry we'll have to deal with that.
Definitely, definitely. I agree with you, sir. Chandra, sir, any last thoughts on this one from your end?
No, I think Vivek said it very well. I mean, Google, I mean, they are, so today, probably ChatGPT is more popular, and Microsoft somehow, uh, I think, has land grabbed that space, if I may call it that way. And there's a lot of popularity, right? Uh, Having said that, I think probably Google uh, is way advanced. They're probably catching up, honestly. But I mean, if you look at the headlines, right? ChatGPT is all over the place. That's the new buzzword everywhere. Okay, but AI is not new. Generative AI is not new, right? Google has been at it for a number of years. Um, uh, Apple has been there as well. So I think uh, the Google Voice Assistant, for example, is a very good example of AI-driven, um, chat assistant, for example, or voice assistant for that matter. Siri is another example, right? So I think it's not new, but if you look at headlines, yes, Google has a lot of catch up to do. Okay, but honestly speaking, there is, I mean, Google has always been the, if I may call it, the Bhishma Pitama of this word, and I think they won't lie low. I agree with Vivek on that. I'll give you an example. I spent a lot of my life in HP and uh, Apple when they were behind, or rather, when they were still figuring out what product to launch. We used to laugh in conference rooms. What is Apple going to do? Oh, the iPhone doesn't even have a forward button, right? And we used to laugh at it in our conference rooms. And as but we didn't know there was this giant who's focusing on user experience and going to build products that will kill HP products. Okay, and that's what they did after a while. I mean, so today, if you look at iPhones, is of course it's an engineering marvel, but at the same time, it's the best. I mean, once an Apple user, you don't like to use Android as an idea. So I think they have really learned the art, and thanks to late Steve Jobs, he really understood what a consumer experience means. He was probably struggling; the competition was laughing at him, but he came in with a much superior product and pulled the socks out of everybody, right? HP today in user experience is way, way behind. They're copying Apple now, right? So I think the guru will always remain the guru, in my humble opinion, and Google will certainly come back very strong. Although I think the headlines are being grabbed by ChatGPT and Microsoft at this point in time. That's kind of my humble opinion. Yeah.
Sure.
Sorry.
Absolutely agree. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think Google would always have that comeback because, see, as Vivek sir also mentioned, it's generative AI. Someone else will always take over. They will always come up with a better version of it, and it's only with time that we are learning is growing. Now, on that note, yes, I would like to rest my questions and allow my lovely audience to ask you a few questions. They are excited, I'm pretty sure. So I'll take up the first one. I have a question in the chat from Ananya. A very good evening to you, Ananya. So she says that, sir, in future, AI can replace the job of the designer. So you're asking that as a question, Ananya. Is your job at a tough spot right now? How would you answer that, Vivek, sir?
So like I said, the answer will depend on you. The It'll certainly, if you are doing run of the mill design, there's a huge industry out here, and globally actually, that generates. When you're saying design, and I presume you mean, let's say designing on a piece of paper. There are lots of design, but I'll just take that as a use case. Uh, so drawing nice pictures and drawing nice creatives, right? And people put them by the dozens on social media, right? So while in fact, one of the big dangers of generative AI is that we're going to see a proliferation of this content on social media, which may or may not be true. It's a whole thing. But coming back to your question, if you so you have to get better. You have to get better at designing, and if you learn to be more creative, more thoughtful, more focused on the consumer, that generative AI cannot do. And if you use generative AI and you raise your own game to build on top of, do things that generative AI can't do, then clearly you will become far more valuable. And just to repeat what I said, see, today in the world, you see the big are getting bigger and the small are getting, smaller, right? The people with good skills are earning a lot, and people with average skills are learning less and less, and that sort of the bifurcation will actually worsen. So people who use these tools effectively, build up their skills, are going to earn a lot more than what they're earning today. And people who just let it be and wait for say nothing will happen, they'll find that their earnings curve is going to start sliding downwards.
Definitely, sir. You've already did cover that before, but I hope, Ananya, that does answer your question. Sir has tried his best to put it in the right framework for you. Fully, yes, Ananya sticks to typing. We have a question, I believe, from Aman Pratap Singh. Yes, Aman, you may go ahead. You can directly unmute and ask your questions as well. Thanks, Ananya. Yes, Aman Pratap Singh, you could unmute and ask your question, please. I believe, Aman, if you're facing any technical difficulty, you can type your question. We'll be happy to take that up. To give my lovely audience a minute. Anyone else who'd like to ask in the meanwhile, please go ahead. We've had some great insights. I believe people are still processing what our leaders here have shared, and it's taking them some time to generate their own questions in their brain AI right now. It's okay. We'll give you guys a minute more. Yes. Oh, we have one. So Akshat has his query. He is asking, can you provide examples of how generative AI is being used in the gaming industry, sir? Oh, I mean, I have some very young audience. How can I forget that this has to be one potential question coming your way? How would you take that, Vivek, sir?
So I wouldn't be able to give you a specific, but I can, make an informed judgment, informed guess. So typically, see, gaming, you'd use a lot of images, a lot of a lot of 3D stuff, right? You can really use AI to generate. In fact, any gaming industry today, a company would be experimenting, if not already using it. Second aspect is the coding itself, right? You can use generative AI for coding, and the third part is the algorithms, the back end. If you look at these high end games algorithms, now those, I guess, the mathematicians can use AI to validate their codes, their algorithms, and their the outlier and so on and so forth. I think those are three areas that I see potentially can be used. You can ask AI to come up with stories as well. I mean, it may not be very creative, but you can use those stories to build on the real AI, yeah, real games. Sorry. Okay, Chandra. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think no, Vivek said it very well. There are various ways it's happening in the gaming industry. I think Vivek talked about coding, etc. But I think if you take games right from games for fun to games for learning, right? It's a very broad spectrum. Um, if it is for I guess games for fun, and you know in a social context, I would see uh, it's used for designing, it's used for, of course, coding, but at the same time, if you look at the games for learning, take strategy games, right? So you could gamify the whole and simulate uh, answers on a specific strategy, or you could do um, you could gamify uh, a whole go-to-market strategy for a new venture. Um, and it could be as simple as you could also design, ask for a simple steps to design uh, a game for killing boredom as an idea. I think so. It can right from whether it's social or whether it is for learning. Uh, you could use generative AI right from design to coding to uh, strategy, execution, uh, uh, in that in that broad stream, end to end. That's what I would say. Again, I've never used it, but I'm sure there are more applications that we can figure out. But I think you can use it for any kind of game, and still use the various components of generative AI, right from content to strategy to design as an idea.
Definitely. As AI definitely has so many more interesting applications, we have some very interesting questions now popping up. Now that everything that you guys have said has finally sunk into my audience, here comes a very interesting one. Maybe I should have picked this one up. Shivam is asking, sir, what are the implications of generative AI for content generation and storytelling in media and entertainment in specific? Do you have any inputs on this one, Vivek, sir?
So, see answers, but there are lots of examples. So, for example, the first impact we have seen is a lot of uh, bad content or false content is getting, because it's so easy to now create your avatars and sort of fake videos and fake this thing. You can make them do what you want, and it's easy to create, right? I think that's getting flooded. Social media is getting flooded with that. So that's a not so good outcome of that. But otherwise, like I said, if you content generation, if you're looking media and entertainment so for example, if you were to write a media, I presume if you're a journalist and you're writing an article on India Park relations or something, you ask. So, for example, if you ask Chat GPT, what are the 10 things that are that are hampering the the India Park relations, I will give you something, okay, and then you can build on top of it. So use it as a support, as a starting point, maybe, and you ask it the relevant questions. You can do it can also help you in research a little bit, but and then you build on top of that. And entertainment, of course, is more media based, where you can use, apart from Chat GPT, you can use to generate the video editing tools and all of those tools, right?
Definitely, sir. I hope, Shivam, we've answered your question. Um, we have another one, and it is interesting to see the different industries that people are here from, and so asking. Chandra sir, if I may give you this one to take up, that definitely in the healthcare industry is also running after generative AI. Have you come across any examples of successful implication? Kanishka is asking.
Yeah, uh, we have certainly been recently exposed to the healthcare industry, and I think more in terms of training people from healthcare, and I think so certainly uh, for healthcare and medical research, there are a lot of applications. Um, for example, I can give an example of a cancer research that one of the companies are doing. So they will, you know, so they can predict onset of cancer way before um, it actually happens by analyzing your food habits, your if I may call it vices. I mean, if somebody smokes or drinks, um, and they can predict, and of course your genetic and all of that. So I think the best one I've seen so far is predicting if a family member would uh, uh, probably face cancer at some point in time in life, as an idea. I mean, there are genetic theory like if you smoke, you'll have a lung cancer, blah blah blah. But it can actually take a lot of data of your family history, uh, your genetic stuff, DNA, and can predict if you're going to have cancer as an idea. Second, I think that I've seen people using a lot of doing a lot of research on uh, this famous topic of intermittent fasting and how it can help improve your diabetes, right? Typically in the medical field, it's a well-known fact that if you're diabetic, you need to be eating regular meals, or you are supposed to eat small meals at regular intervals. There's this new theory that's coming up that actually you shouldn't be eating small meals at regular intervals. You should be fasting longer, uh, fasting more than you are eating meals at regular intervals. So this is a little different theory, but a lot of research going on in that space as well. So these are two examples I can think of. And last but not the least in this space, I think a lot of research happening uh, with what are the health tech platforms in various fields, whether it's doing research to recruitment to uh, you know building health tech plans or healthcare plans over a period of time. Um, One example, I know Norway has been building uh, doing some research on what is the life expectancy of their population and what sort of healthcare plan they should be planning they should be doing early in the process, and a lot of AI tools are being used in that space. So I think these three I can think of. I'm sure there are more, but certainly the three are very key ones that I've seen, at least in this
So
domain.
I can just add one more. Actually, from a generative AI, one of the big applications is R&D in general, and medical
Yes.
research. The drug discovery process is extremely expensive and complicated and time consuming. It's a huge part of the cost that we as consumers pay. So that drug discovery process can get speeded, because ultimately they start, the way they work is they start from some substance and they see whether it works or doesn't work. So that process can be automated using AI, and it can, and a lot of people are working on it, can lead to very relatively much quicker cycles and hopefully more faster improvements in drug discoveries and healthcare.
Definitely, sir. I think I buy in the points that both of you have mentioned, and it looks like AI will give us a healthier and a safer life to live in times to come. I hope, Kanishka, we've excited you more by sharing with you the generative AI application in healthcare. But there is another one, and this one is from Anup and Chandra sir, with your financial background. I think I'm very interested in posing this question to you. So Anup is asking me that how can generative AI be used to improve the accuracy and efficiency of financial forecasting and investment strategies? Would you like to throw some light on it?
Yeah, so there are two different questions, I think. So one is on financial forecasting and other one is on investment strategies. They're two different topics. Uh, I think on the forecasting, it uses a lot of historical data to predict what's going to happen in the. So take an example of a demand supply matching of various products, right? So let's say if you're in a PC business, I can give you that example, which is close to my heart, and you want to predict your sales basis the shelf life of the product, how quickly the product is moving, and the availability of the components for producing those PCs and machines. So I think it can, once you feed the historical data, it can actually throw out an algorithm for what your sales are going to be in the future. So that's one simple application. The other, on the investment strategies, I think it's a broader topic. It'll take me a couple of hours to answer that question. But in very simply said, if you go to Facebook and join any of the Chat GPT groups, there are smart people who have built um, who have built the share price, uh, who have built tools to predict the share price of a particular company. Basis the technical analysis of, I'm trying to simplify it as much as possible because it's a very, very complex topic. Basis the uh, daily price movement, which is called technical analysis in finance. They are predicting the future price of a share. So, what would Mr. Ambani's company be worth, or share price in in a few days from now, a few weeks from now, or a few years from now? And they have a day trading algorithm. So people, so it's very, very interesting concept. And people have built logics around it, and they're using it for predicting a share price of a company, and then people are investing. By the way, I don't recommend that you use that for investing in shares. Do it at your own risk if you want to, but I don't recommend you do that. But for academic understanding, the underlying impact, the underlying application of in the AI is that it uses the large amount of data, understand the pattern, and then predict whether you're talking about sales or a share price of a company. That's the fundamental logic behind all of this. As I said earlier, even if you use any of these tools and which predicts the share price of a company, use your own judgment. And this is where the collaboration of AI with human happens. I think use your own judgment to make those assumptions, and and invest your money, and do it very, very carefully.
Sure, sir. I know you've tried to simplify it in layman terms as much as possible for the audience. And I really hope, Anup, that gives you a broad outline. Yes, as sir says, don't be 100% dependent on it, and especially when it comes to making financial forecasting, right? That's a caveat we always get to hear, those two quick liners at the end of every advertisement. All right. So moving on to another one. Vivek sir, Sumit Negi here asks us that what skills are needed to be involved in AI research? Would you have something to say on that?
I think there are two ways of looking at it. See, one is like for majority of us, as or majority of the for a majority of us today, we need to be able to use the AI tools well. We don't need to develop those tools, and it's so any students or young executives here, who no background in say maths and coding and logic, just start using the tools that are around you that use GPT is one, but there are lots of them. So that's, but if you want to get into pure AI, you want the computer science type of AI, then you need, I think, three skills basically. You need coding. Obviously, you need to be able to. Python is the biggest language today, but you need a coding. You need a strong coding base. You need maths. You need to understand you understand the statistics. You need to understand the correlation. You understand lots of different. Maths is very important. And the third piece is, you need to know at least one domain. So domain that you're working in, it's because ultimately, like I said, AI is about applying it to a context, right? So you need to have a sense of at least one domain, right? And I think the combination of those three can make you a really good AI person who can create models, who can create sort of algorithms, who can build AI applications. Not just use AI, but build AI applications for others to use. I hope that answers your question, Sumit.
Yes, we do hope, Sumit, that answers the questions to see, obviously, sir would give you his top of the mind thoughts, but anyone who has something further to add or ask, you may unmute and specifically ask. But thank you so much, sir, for taking that one up. We have another one, which is pretty direct. Of course, Nikhil is mentioning that how can AI help in customer support role in specific? Would you like to take this one up as well, Vivek, sir?
Yeah, so I think there are three ways. There is one is self-help for the customer. So you create a chat bot, which has been happening, but now it's possible because of these. You can do a much better job. So you can do a chat bot. So customer is able to get her answers quickly and by themselves. They don't have to talk to anybody. The second aspect is during interaction. If I'm an agent and a customer logs in, I can access, I can ask generative AI if there's something, how to word this thing, or data about the customer or cultural. If I don't understand something, I can so during the interaction I can get, and obviously on an ongoing basis, self-learning for the agent, for somebody who's in the industry. For example, if you, I'm sure companies you work for will have some training programs, but if you're ever stuck, you can informal learning and ask chat GPT, what does this mean, is this correct way of doing it, not doing it, right? You can do so to the extent that AI can help the learning training process, it can help you as a customer service agent.
Definitely. I think that does well explains. I hope we have answered your questions. And Sumit says thanks. Okay, definitely. You're most welcome, Sumit. That's where my panelist and eAge is making this effort so that you understand AI in all realms. So the last one, if I may quickly take up, I know we have overshot time, but Satish has just posted us one last query probably on how AI and machine learning differ from each other.
So it's a technical, it's not that much actually. See, machine learning is basically the way the machine learns. Okay, it's effectively. So the way it learns is it has those. The way the way machine learning AI has been conceptualized is learning from the brain. So in our brain, we my daughter asked me the other day, my 13-year-old daughter, that does our brain store information on a hard disk, or is there another way? So our brain doesn't store it on a hard disk type of approach. It stores it as a neural pattern, right? So 100 billion neurons, which trillions of connections, and there is a sort of a pattern for each memory and each thing that we know, and that's how the brain sort of stores. And when you have a new thing, then the new patterns are formed, old patterns mix, and if you don't revise something, the patterns become weak. The connections, the synapses between neurons become weak, and you keep forgetting. So that's sort of the So they've tried to mimic that in machine learning. So they use what are called neural networks, right? So which are basically saying that if let's say if you, I'm not an expert in this, okay? So, but if you, let's say if you're saying I've got 100 images of a cat, and I want to say what are the characteristics of a cat. So then each image will sort of be a neuron, and each data point. So a pointy nose or whisker, stuff like that, and then they'll collect it from all the this thing, and they'll map it into a, so it's a layered network. So one layer looks after, so they don't know exactly, because ML AI is a black box. All the analysis is done in a black box, but there are layers, and each layer is responsible for something, and the data, sort of the recognition and learning happens through that. And you keep changing the weightages of that. Weightages define the actual weight in the algorithm that you, or the equation that you have, and that's how it sort of learns. So, and you keep feeding it data, you keep modifying the weights, and you see how close you get to the real answer. So that's, and machine learning, that's machine learning. AI is commonly represented, AI is the output in some sense of machine learning, but they're very similar, used largely into AI, probably a broader term than machine learning. That's it.
Great, sir. Of course, that gives me also a little understanding. Being a layman, I'm so thankful. So, I mean, such in easy ways and with such amazing examples, both of you have been able to give us a very wide understanding of AI, its usage, and now I can correlate with AI and machine learning being almost on a similar, framework. Thank you so much for that, Vivek, sir. Any last questions from anyone that I can take up? Any further questions if anyone has? I'll give you guys a couple of seconds. If there is anything that comes to your mind, this is your spot. And yes, both our panelists have given us more than the committed time. But yes, I know you are excited about the topic. So is everyone. Today, so many interesting questions that I couldn't have thought of myself. But good to see that you had it in your mind. Well, I guess on that note, let's wrap up. Looks like our team is, our audience has had their fill of their share of fill. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. So once again, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest speakers. They have graced us with their presence and shared such invaluable insights on AI usage in education and learning field. So your experience and passion were very evident throughout your presentation today when you were answering such questions, which are very interesting questions. Not everyone can always have the right answer, but you came up with not only the right answer, but had put it in soft layman language for us to gulp it down. I'll say it like that. So it has been a truly captivating moment sharing this podium with you, Chandra sir, Vivek sir. Thank you so much for your presence, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. On behalf of my audience, my heartfelt gratitude to you, sir.
Thank you so